With George Aragon.
Tonight at 6, 4 people have died and 20 injured after a terror attack in the heart of London. This is Westminster right now. Police were called to the scene just before 3. We've been piecing together the details since then. Moments of panic, they don't yet know what's happened. And then this. The attack began on Westminster Bridge. A vehicle was driven into pedestrians. It's here at least one person was killed, several others were hit. Paramedics say their injuries are catastrophic.
On the other side of the road there was a body, and when I looked further up there was another body, and then when I looked over the side of the bridge there appeared to be a body in the water as well.
This is where the car ended up, crashed into the railing outside Parliament. Inside the gates of the Palace of Westminster, an attacker was shot by police after he stabbed an officer.
He's dead.
This house is now suspended, but please wait here.
MPs were told the building was in lockdown. Theresa May was there, but security officers got her out.
The Senior National Coordinator has declared this a terrorist incident. And although we remain open-minded to the motive, a full counter-terrorism investigation is already underway.
Tonight on BBC London, we were warned when, not if. Tonight we get reaction as the Met put their terror training into practice. And we're here for Londoners as the capital deals with another suspected terrorist attack on our city.
Good evening. Westminster is in a state of emergency tonight after what the Metropolitan Police described as a terror incident. 4 people are known to have died, including an attacker. 20 people have been injured. A police officer was killed inside the parliamentary grounds, the heart of British democracy. Here's what we know so far. An attacker is reported to have run down several pedestrians on Westminster Bridge before crashing into railings. This is where a woman died. Others suffered catastrophic injuries. The attacker is then reported to have run through the gates of the Palace of Westminster and stabbed the police officer. In the last few minutes, we understand the officer has died from his injuries. Eyewitnesses said the attacker was shot by police as he approached a second officer carrying his knife. During the attack, MPs in the House of Commons were told to lie on the floor for their own safety. Our first report tonight is from our political editor, Laura Koonsberg, who's been inside Parliament.
Run. Move. Go. The shouts around the heart of Westminster, the centre of our government. Normally a safe place. Not today. Members of the public, politicians, the hundreds of staff for whom this is work. In politics, for some, a home from home. Locked down, a place of danger. Ministers rush to safety.
There are at least a couple of hundred people here inside Portcullis House. This is really the heart of where Westminster does its business, and we're all part of a lockdown after what has happened outside. A police officer has told me one man was shot out the front. A few MPs have told me they heard 3 or 4 gunshots as they were on their way to vote. This is obviously a place where it's very tightly guarded at all times, but there's quite a sense of shock that finally it appears something so serious has happened right here in the heart of Westminster.
Inside, everything unclear.
Order! I am now going to suspend the sitting of the House. This House is now suspended, but please wait here.
Then, in a chamber that sat through all sorts of situations, work interrupted.
There has been a serious incident within the estate. It seems that a police officer has been stabbed, that the alleged assailant was shot by authorities, there are also reports of further violent incidents in the vicinity of the Palace of Westminster, but I hope colleagues on all sides will appreciate that it would be wrong of me here to go into further details until we have confirmation from the police and from the House security authorities about what is going on.
As the seriousness of the attack began to spread, MPs told me they heard 3-4 gunshots on their way to vote. Others saw with their eyes from their office windows.
We saw a thick-set man in black clothes come through the gates into New Palace Yard. New Palace Yard is just below Big Ben. And this man had something in his hand. It looked like a stick of some sort. He was challenged by a couple of policemen in yellow jackets, and one of the yellow-jacketed policemen fell down. And we could see the man in black moving his arm in a way that suggested he was either stabbing or striking.
This police officer that has collapsed has died.
And one of the policemen then ran to get help, which was very, very quick to come. And as this attacker was running towards the entrance used by MPs, 2 plainclothes guys with guns shouted at him, uttered what sounded like a warning. He ignored it, and they shot 2 or 3 times, and he fell.
Westminster Bridge, a tourist spot. This afternoon, violence stilled it.
I heard what I thought was just a collision, and then I looked through the window of the taxi and I saw someone down, obviously in great distress, and then I saw a second person down, and I started filming, and then I saw 3 more people down, one of them bleeding profusely. So what I saw was an incident involving at least 5 people seriously injured.
I was just walking across the bridge and suddenly a bus stopped and everybody started screaming. People came off the bus and they seemed very upset. And then I saw what appeared to be a trainer by the side of the road. And then on the other side of the road there was a body. And when I looked further up there was another body. And then when I looked over the side of the bridge there appeared to be a body in the water.
A car and driver intent on taking the lives of those who came to see what's normally a safe circle, the most tightly guarded part of the capital city. Danger and confusion.
Since 2:40 this afternoon, the MPS has responded to an incident in the area of Parliament Square, and the Senior National Coordinator had declared this a terrorist incident. And although we remain open-minded to the motive, a full counter-terrorism investigation is already underway. This is led by the Met Counter-Terrorism Command. At this stage, I will confirm what we know has happened, but I will not speculate. We received a number of different reports, which included a person in the river, a car in collision with pedestrians, and a man armed with a knife.
Was this one of those responsible? So much is unclear. Yet police and the government considering this attack as the most serious of its kind. For an attack which stopped today's business of democracy, not just for politicians who came to work, but hundreds of people here to visit, to be part of this place.
It's just after 5 o'clock. I've been here with a group of students held in a safe room. We're in a building called Norman Shaw South, which is very close to the riverside and quite near where the attack actually took place. We still don't really know what's going on. This group of students was brought here just for the day to see how Parliament works. Little did they know what kind of situation would unfold. And frankly, it's still very hard to believe what's really happened here today.
An attack that in theory many expected to come to London again one day. But the truth of an event like this in practice, a shock in our Parliament, a shock in our country, whatever the motive, an effort to stop our democracy in its tracks.
Well, let's get more now from Laura, who's in Westminster. Laura, you just said it's very hard to believe what's happened, and let's remember this happened inside and around Parliament, presumably, supposedly one of the most secure places in the country. Laura, I wonder if you can hear me. I was just saying, Laura, that you would think this attack had happened inside the parliamentary grounds and outside, one of the most secure places in the country.
That's right, George. I mean, it's hard to underestimate the sense that this place is in its own secure world. You know, on a given day, just being at work, me and other journalists, the MPs, the thousands of staff who work here, probably walk past armed police a dozen times a day. It feels like a very, very secure place, but also a very safe place. Yet just before 3 o'clock, me and many other people heard policemen shouting, members of the public being rushed along the riverside, and then we were rushed in Portcullis House down to one of the emergency exits. That's right in the heart of the parliamentary complex. Told to move, told to run, then moved back to the main atrium. And then half an hour or so after that sort of bewilderment as the news started to emerge, we were moved down to offices around the parliamentary estate. I'm still in one of those offices, right in the middle of Parliament. Some people now have been led out of the complex, but there are many of us still here who've been trying to understand what's happened as drips of information have come through. But MPs I've spoken to who saw some of what's happened, who heard gunshots earlier this afternoon, shocked, bewildered, and as I say, it's hard to overestimate really how Westminster is its own world, its own community, if you like. And this afternoon there are many people just feeling they can...
Sorry about all the shaky.
All right, Laura, thank you. And we may come back to you later in the programme. As I've been saying, we're trying to piece together the details. Well, in the last few minutes, Scotland Yard's top anti-terror officer, Acting Deputy Commissioner Mark Rowley, has been giving an update on today's events.
We've declared this as a terrorist incident, and the Counter-Terrorism Command are carrying out a full-scale investigation into the events today. The attack started when a car was driven over Westminster Bridge, hitting and injuring a number of members of the public, also including 3 police officers on their way back from a commendation ceremony. The car then crashed near to Parliament, and at least one man, armed with the knife, continued the attack and tried to enter Parliament. Sadly, I can confirm that now 4 people have died. That includes the police officer who was protecting Parliament, and one man, we believe to be the attacker, who was shot by a police firearms officer. The officer's family have been made aware. At least 20 people have been injured. My thoughts are with all those who have been affected by today's attack, and as a service, we've lost one of our own as he acted to protect the public and his colleagues. This is a day we planned for, but we hope will never happen. Sadly, it's now a reality. We will continue to do all we can to protect the people of London.
And that was the Acting Deputy Commissioner Mark Rowley there. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford is at Scotland Yard for us. Daniel, presumably this is the kind of incident for which Scotland Yard prepares and rehearses.
Yes, obviously it's been in everyone's mind that there could be a vehicular attack, an attack on Parliament, and an attack where peace officers could get injured or killed for many months, if not years now. But today,
and civilians?
Reality. Westminster Bridge, which is just 100 metres in that direction, is a crime scene. Every vehicle on Westminster Bridge is still there, every vehicle that was there at the time of the attack, and forensic officers are pouring over the scene, literally metres from Big Ben itself. And then, just behind the building, is Old Palace Yard, one of the most important open areas in the Palace of Westminster, where every MP walks through almost every day, and that is also a crime scene. And then here we are in the new headquarters of Scotland Yard, which is literally 100 metres. The road where the attacker drove goes between New Scotland Yard and the Palace of Westminster. Scotland Yard have lost one of their own officers. They've had to shoot dead a man that they believe was attacking Parliament, and they've lost 2 other people, probably on Westminster Bridge itself, as a vehicle mowed through tourists, students, school pupils, and people going about their everyday business. A major counter-terrorism investigation is now underway, but Scotland Yard knows that today, despite all their preparations, somebody has managed to launch an attack on Parliament and has had some success. I should say there's one little question mark this evening, and that is about whether or not this man was a lone attacker or whether possibly there was someone else with him. There are reports of 2 people in the car, and there are different reports, some of a white attacker, some of a black attacker, which still leaves open the possibility that there may have been 2 people.
All right, Daniel, thank you very much. Thank you. Well, tonight the Prime Minister will chair a meeting of the government's Emergency Cobra Committee. Parliament remains in lockdown with business suspended, as our Deputy Political Editor John Pienaar reports.
It's one of the busiest and best guarded sites in Britain. In Europe, the police response took moments, and as the cordons closed, those who'd watched these terrifying scenes unfold added to the accounts of what had just taken place.
100, 200 yards from Big Ben, just overlooking Westminster Bridge, and arrived just after the incident. But as I did so, I bumped into a group of extremely traumatised French teenagers who were here on a trip for a week. One of them described to me what had happened on the bridge, how he saw a car drive into what he thought was 2 or 3 of the people with him. Many people too upset, crying too much to talk. So I'm in shock, Simon. So I passed one person lying on
The lady that was hit by the car is dead as well.
blankets that you see after the marathon.
And from inside Parliament
So
itself,
this person up here is dead.
His car hit the barriers outside, then saw what happened next.
We heard a big bang outside the Westminster Tube entrance, about 2:40, and then screaming, and a man shouting, and then about 100 or 200 or so tourists and passers-by started running from the Westminster Bridge across the pavement in front of Parliament to Westminster Abbey. Shortly after that, there was some loud shooting. Several shots were fired outside Parliament and now Amherst landed, and now there are 2 ambulances. They're trying to treat people there. The police are marking the area out with cones now.
Emergency services converged in force to tend to the casualties. At this stage, no one knew quite how many. Metres away from these scenes, London life went on in blissful ignorance. One MP helped raise the alarm.
I then made my way into the tube station. I could see a whole bunch of people just walking around with their kids like it was a normal day. I went straight to the control room. I said, you need to shut the tube station now. We've got a terror attack that's happened on the Palace of Westminster. You need to shut it now. And he was, he put a radio alert out to all staff, and they started putting on their high visibility jackets.
All the MPs were going to vote when the incident happened. Sounds like I was perhaps a little bit further ahead of her on the way to the Old Palace in order to vote when the gunshots rang out. It takes a moment to think, actually, that is not a car backfiring, that is a gunshot. And then there was lots of yelling and lots of, get down the floor, get back into the buildings, which is what we all did.
The numbers killed, the casualty list has grown. An attack aimed at the heart of British national life. The politicians, police and security services will study what happened here and seek to learn the lessons, even as innocent victims are treated and the families and friends of the dead begin to mourn. John Pienaar, BBC News, Westminster.
Now, in a moment, we'll speak to Sophie Hutchinson, who is outside St Thomas's Hospital in central London. But first, we can talk to Eleanor Garnier, who's in Westminster for us. Eleanor, behind you, I can see nothing but blue flashing lights. Presumably, the whole place is in sort of lockdown.
Even this evening, George, police vans and cars and ambulances are continuing to arrive. We're 300 metres away from the Palace of Westminster. I've been here all afternoon, and politicians I've been in contact with have been telling me how shocked they've been at what's happened here in Westminster, and of course saddened too that 4 people have died and at least 20 have been injured. As soon as the incident happened, Westminster went into lockdown. MPs and parliamentary staff told me they were asked to move away from windows, and gradually people inside the Palace of Westminster were grouped together. And it's only in the last hour or so that around 500 people were taken across the road to Westminster Abbey, where I understand there are about 1,000 people, many being briefed by police officers there. But of course, it's not yet known exactly what happened and when, but many saying how sad they are what has happened, and the former Prime Minister, David Cameron, saying those seeking to attack our democracy with these barbarous methods will never win. But obviously many questions still unanswered.
Sophie, if I could come to you, just for people who may not know, St Thomas's is very close to Westminster, isn't it?
Well, this is the nearest hospital to where the attack took place. It's literally across the River Thames from where the Houses of Parliament are. It looks onto them, if you like, and you can see the scene beside me. There are a dozen or so emergency vehicles here, mainly ambulances parked up in the street. The hospital is right behind me, and on my other side you can see one of these buses that is a sightseeing bus that's just been abandoned in the street, and some other vehicles, just some cars that were abandoned there as the attack took place. London Ambulance say that they were called to Westminster Bridge, which is just beyond this bus here, at about 2:40 this afternoon, and they declared a major incident. They treated at least 10 people on the bridge. We now know that there were at least 20 casualties, some of them some French school children, and it was staff here at the hospital who rushed out as soon as the attack happened in order to try to help. And one of the junior doctors here, who was the first to say that a woman had died at the scene here after reports that a number of people had in fact been ploughed into by that vehicle. Now, this isn't a major trauma centre, and a number of patients, we understand 5 patients, have been taken to King's Hospital, a major trauma centre, where they're being treated for their injuries.
All right, Sophie Hutchinson outside St Thomas's Hospital, and Eleanor Garnier at Westminster. Thank you both.